Hauled before her medical council's disciplinary committee, Dr. Slim faced 94 counts of overcharging her royal patient. For the first time in her professional life, Dr. Slim's integrity and all she stood for was being challenged. Yet she had done nothing wrong except fulfill her agreement with her royal patient. The bills prior to the dispute had always been paid without question by the palace. What had changed? While her royal patient got sicker and more demanding, Dr. Slim had kept her rates the same as the previous year. Why was this last 6 months of billing now in dispute? Horrible accusations of profiteering were hurled at Dr. Slim. Carried on the front pages of local media, these scandalous untruths were viraled around the world. Heavy in her heart, Dr. Slim faced huge mounting legal fees, the cost of having to defend her good name. Her practice, once the most successful in her land, now faced bankruptcy. Is there a God in this world? She wondered, as she bravely continued in her search for justice. Strengthened by her complete lack of wrongdoing, Dr. Slim was backed by her thousands of patient supporters. But the one patient, the only one who could have spoken up in her defense to crush the allegations, was silenced forever. Of course, something had changed. Her royal patient had died. Suddenly, Dr. Slim's only alibi who could have vouched to the terms of the agreement and who had always paid all her bills over the last 6 years was now gone. It all started in 1990 when a young female surgeon made history by successfully performing her continent's first liver transplant. This landmark surgery propelled Dr. Slim to new heights. Through sheer hard work and dedication to her patients, she excelled and gained global prominence. Armed with degrees, fellowships, and a string of awards from 4 continents, Dr. Slim was a trailblazer. Far away across the seas, a royal patient from the East was nursing a fast-growing cancer. She required urgent surgical attention, but had rejected many doctors over the years. Thus, a royal net was cast far and wide in search of a surgeon who could satisfy the royals' demands. She was, after all, the sister of the Queen of the East. The royal radar panned the universe, and as fate would have it, zoomed in on the young and rising Dr. Slim. Out of a hand-picked selection of surgeons, the Queen chose Dr. Slim for her ailing sister. Dr. Slim worked diligently and dedicated much of her time and effort in coping with her royal's unusual demands. The royal required dedicated nurses, treatment in unorthodox locations, private air charters, but most of all, the undivided attention of Dr. Slim. For it was Dr. Slim's successful surgery that had given the royal a new lease of life. Soon, the royal was able to travel again and journeyed with her entourage far and wide to shop and enjoy. In fact, the royal regained so much strength that she stopped consulting Dr. Slim. She was, after all, well and no longer required medications, or so it seemed. Then one day, while on a trip to the palace, Dr. Slim was asked by the Queen if she could visit her sister, who lay ailing in her royal bed, unable to walk. Many other doctors who had flown in to examine the royal were turned away. When the palace announced the arrival of Dr. Slim at her doorstep, the royal ordered that the door be opened to welcome Dr. Slim. Dr. Slim examined and diagnosed a spread of the cancer. The royal indignantly proclaimed that she would only return to Dr. Slim's country if she promised to take charge of her entire care. This was even if her ailment no longer fell within Dr. Slim's surgical specialty. The royal demanded that Dr. Slim grant her this wish, as it also happened to be her birthday. In the presence of the Queen, Dr. Slim dutifully accepted the appointment. The next few years saw Dr. Slim dedicate an increasing amount of time and effort to the care of her royal patient, even though other very able specialists had also been recruited. The royal would not accept any treatment unless Dr. Slim was present to sanction and take responsibility for her well-being. The royal realized that she would be taking Dr. Slim away from her academic pursuits, that she would disrupt the momentum of Dr. Slim's fast-rising trajectory towards surgical stardom. The royal understood the impact of demands on Dr. Slim's life and agreed with her the terms of the appointment. As the royal got sicker, her demands for unusual treatments grew. Due to the royal's phobia for hospitals, she often demanded to be treated in hotel suites. She was scared of bright lights and insisted that some procedures be conducted by candlelight. Dr. Slim found herself consumed in carefully navigating these royal demands. Over the years, the royal was satisfied with the services she received and always remunerated Dr. Slim accordingly. Then one day, Dr. Slim herself became a patient. She had seriously injured her left eye during a fall, and the retina in her eye was fast detaching. Her colleagues hurriedly wheeled her into the operating room and pried open Dr. Slim's eye in order to reattach her retina. Following the surgery, Dr. Slim was under strict instructions to lie face down in her hospital bed 24/7. She was instructed to maintain this prone position strictly for many weeks until the gas bubble in her eye, which held up her retina, had resolved. But just 3 days following the dramatic eye surgery, across the seas, the royal too became urgently breathless, and she demanded only Dr. Slim's attention. Dr. Slim, from her hospital bed, peering out of one eye and in some considerable discomfort, was summoned. She was required to provide a medical team to fly the royal back for treatment. But upon arrival, the royal, breathless as she was, refused treatment. Surrounded by a team of specialists whom Dr. Slim had mobilized, the royal refused admission to hospital unless Dr. Slim was present to attend to her, no matter what. Dr. Slim rose to her responsibility, left her hospital bed, and journeyed face down. Walking slowly with head bowed low, eye patch over the left eye, supported by her 2 nurses, she made her way to the royal's hotel suite. There it was, 2 patients, one blinded, the other breathless, in face-off. It was obvious to the royal that Dr. Slim was truly unwell, yet she could not go through her own treatment without the presence of the injured Dr. Slim by her side. Reminded of her birthday promise, Dr. Slim obliged and took charge to supervise her royal's care, risking her own eyesight. 2 weeks later, the royal was once again fit to travel, and while waving goodbye to Dr. Slim, remarked that she, the royal, had recovered first. Into the final year of her life, some 6 years later, the royal became terminally unwell. Dr. Slim and her team worked tirelessly around the clock over 6 months, harder than ever before, to give dignity and quality to the royal during the last days of her life. Never mind the unreasonableness of her royal's demands, Dr. Slim took it all in her stride, even paying first for the royal's miscellaneous sundry expenses. Dr. Slim never doubted that she would be reimbursed in the usual way, as it had always been through the years. Then, in that fateful last year, the royal made another birthday wish, a final one. This time, she wished to be transported back home to be with her mother, the Queen Mother. Dr. Slim worked conscientiously through the days and nights and over 13 consecutive weekends to prepare her royal for the flight. Dr. Slim was determined to fulfill this last birthday wish, even to the extent of paying for the private aircraft that was ordered by the palace to transport the royal patient and her entourage back home. Though that was not to be the end of Dr. Slim's assignment, for the Queen had ordered that Dr. Slim remain in her kingdom for a further 33 days, till after the birthday celebrations of His Majesty the King. Obediently, Dr. Slim provided a team of doctors and nurses to be in daily attendance, with herself dedicating her weekends to be by the royal's bedside, 12 hours at a stretch, and on call to respond to any emergency. Comforted by the presence of Dr. Slim and her nurses, the royal patient finally closed her eyes forever. It was a very sad moment, though Dr. Slim took comfort that she had fulfilled her obligations to her royal. Weary from the 6 months of providing intensive medical care and overwhelmed by the mounting backlog of research commitments, patients, and family obligations, Dr. Slim returned home to resume her normal life, or so she thought. One of Dr. Slim's immediate tasks was to consolidate the 6 months of outstanding debt incurred by the royal. Still heavy in her heart, Dr. Slim added a generous discount in recognition of her long-standing royal relationship and the end of her royal's life. Dr. Slim then wrote a final letter to the royal's authorities requesting settlement of the outstanding sum of money, which also included the cost of the private aircraft, third-party doctor's charges, and sundries. But unknowing to Dr. Slim, trouble was brewing across the seas. Incredulously, her royal patient's outstanding bills were now disputed. What had always been an agreement honored on both sides between her royal patient and her practice over 6 years was now the subject of dispute. The matter of her deceased royal's outstanding bills was being escalated between government officials of 2 countries. For the first time, and only after the royal's death, Dr. Slim was accused of being a profiteer. A 6-year royal engagement was conveniently forgotten. Suddenly, no one wanted to know about the intensive and dedicated services provided, those unusual demands on Dr. Slim's practice and her life. Hauled before the disciplinary committee, she faced unfair prosecution, which discredited her good name. But the fact of the matter is that she was never paid for those 6 months. Further, she was still out of pocket for significant third-party costs and the cost of the private air charter. It was the start of a 4-year nightmare for Dr. Slim. All she needed was a forum to tell her story, to state the facts, and to clear her good name. But which forum would give her the opportunity? The disciplinary committee, behind closed doors, had prejudged her unfairly, without even giving her a chance to present her case, such that they had to recuse themselves, wholly unprecedented in the history of the medical council. Never one to give up, Dr. Slim, backed by her legal counsel, patients, and family, decided to mount an appeal before a public court where she felt she would surely get justice. Ascending the steps of the highest court in her land, the justice that Dr. Slim sought was simply to clear her name in public and finally close the chapter on her royal engagement.